And again, thank you in advance for helping me out. Today's agenda, I'm going to talk about ethics and sexual harassment, our code of ethics. That's the agenda. The introduction, cover ethics, sexual harassment, procedures, closing, and any questions you guys might have. It'll be brief, I promise. Again, for some reason, my throat has been acting up the past couple of days. So please bear with me if I start. Okay. Welcome to the Ethics and Sexual Harassment training. My name is Mr. Garcia. Okay, today I'm going to cover ethics, sexual harassment, communication with students, and what's expected from us from the state and our district. All of the information I received, I researched it from our district code of ethics. Ethics, the discipline dealing with what is good and bad and with moral duty and obligation. Okay, this is what the state of Texas tells us we should follow. The Texas educator shall comply with standard practices and ethical conduct towards students, professional colleagues, school officials, parents, and members of the community, and shall safeguard academic freedom. The Texas educator, in maintaining the dignity of the profession, shall respect and obey the law, demonstrate personal integrity, and exemplify honesty and good moral character. In other words, we're going to be the example for the students and for the community. And again, everything can be found in our district website. Okay, these are the 14 standards. I'm not going to go over all of them. Just a couple that stand out. For example, 1.5, the educator shall neither accept nor offer gratuities, gifts, or favors that impair professional judgment or to obtain special advantage. This standard shall restrict the acceptance of gifts or tokens offered and accepted openly from students, parents of students, and other persons or organizations in recognition or appreciation of service. Recently, it came out in the news about a school board trustee in Brownsville accepting bribes to buy electronic devices from a certain company that then didn't work. So she was brought up on charges, and that's what that standard is. The other standard I want to go over is 1.10. And basically this is, I think, the most important one that covers everything. The educator shall be of good moral character and be worthy to instruct or supervise the youth of the state. Again, we're the example for the students. How can they be expected to be good citizens if we don't provide the example? Now, the next one was ethical conduct towards professional colleagues. This one, again, I'm not going to go over all of them. We're just going to go over some. 2.2, the educator shall not harm others by knowingly making false statements about a colleague or the school system, basically gossip or lies about colleagues or the school. 2.5, the educator shall not discriminate against or coerce a colleague on the basis of race, color, religion, national origin, age, gender, disability, family status, or sexual orientation. We cannot discriminate against each other. And now I think one of the most recent ones that should be added there is a political alliance or what politics you are, the politics. 2.7, the educator shall not retaliate against any individual who has filed a complaint with SPEC, the State Board of Education, or provides information for a disciplinary investigation or proceeding under this chapter. If somebody lodges a complaint against me, basically I cannot retaliate against that person. And then we go into the ethical conduct towards students. Okay, 3.1 has to do with students' privacy. We cannot disclose any information with anybody unless it's for educational or required by law. Okay, 3.2, knowingly or recklessly treating a student or minor in a manner that adversely affects or endangers the learning, physical health, mental health, or safety of the student or minor. I in elementary, and one of the students I had was a tiny little girl that somewhere along the line the teacher had, again, allegedly treated her bad, and she had anxiety issues. Anytime she would hear somebody scream, she would freeze up. And then not only that, but the teacher started, when the parent confronted the teacher, or the teacher started taking it out on the parent too, but only she was too shy to complain. So we have to take into consideration the student's mental health too. Okay, 3.4 is about also discriminating against the students. 3.5, again, abuse of a student or minor. 3.6, the educator shall not solicit or engage in sexual conduct or romantic relationships with a student or minor. Again, we're going to go into harassment and communication with the students in a little bit. And 3.9 has to do with communication with the students through electronic devices, through things like that. And these are some of the guidelines. If you're communicating with the students, the nature, purpose, timing, amount of communication, the subject of the communication, whether it was made openly or if the educator concealed the communication, whether it was interpreted as soliciting sex, contact, or romantic relationships, a no-no, whether communication was sexually explicit and involved discussion of sexual attractiveness, history, activities, preferences, fantasies, either the educator or the student, again, a no. Now we're going to go into harassment and inappropriate conduct. And sorry, this is from the district. We do not allow employees to engage in sexual harassment of other employees, students, parents, patrons, or vendors to the school. No district employee is permitted to have a sexual or romantic relationship with a student, regardless whether the student or parent welcomes or approves of the relationship. Sexual harassment is in any unwelcome conduct of any kind that is based on a person's sex, or that would not occur but for the sex or gender of the person, and that is so severe or pervasive that it deprives the person of the benefit of his or her job or education. It can be request for sexual favors, touching of a sexual nature, and if any of this happens to you, you have a right to complain, and you have a right to not have retaliation against you. Okay, sexual harassment can be male, from harassers, a male or a female. You do not have to be the opposite sex. It can be your supervisor, agent of the employer, supervisor in another area, co-worker, or non-employee. Harassment may occur without economic injury or to or discharge of the victim, and the harasser's conduct must be unwelcome. Okay, there are two types of sexual harassment. The first one is called quid pro quo, a favor for a favor, which happens when a supervisor or someone in a position of authority requests for sexual favors or conduct in exchange for tangible results. For example, a supervisor exchange for promotion, an educator or college professor may proposition a student for sex in exchange for better grades. Okay, the second one is called hostile work environment. This is basically when a subject, it goes through unsolicited physical, verbal, sexual advances that are so severe that it affects the employee's working environment or the student's education. For instance, every time your boss summons you into their office, it always leads to them proposition you for sex, or every time you're alone with them, they make a sexual pass at you. While assertions of quid pro quo harassment may be easier to prove, the hostile work environment is not. It's harder to detect and even more difficult to prove. However, it should not stop you from filing a complaint. Repeated compliments about employees' appearance can be construed as sexual harassment. An employer discussing their sex life in front of the employee, asking an employee about their sex life, making sexual jokes, circulating nude or semi-nude photos in the workplace, spreading sexual rumors about a coworker, leaving unwanted gifts of a romantic or sexual nature, unwanted physical contact such as a hand on an employee's back. And I've seen that firsthand. That hug where everybody squirms and it feels creepy when they touch you, that can be considered sexual harassment. Commenting on the attractiveness of other coworkers in front of the employer. And back then, basically what the district attorney told us was anything that Michael Scott from The Office does is considered sexual harassment. That they studied the show and it was full of everything wrong in The Office. Okay, now we go into inappropriate social relationships with students. We're always in the public eye, and the expectation is that we will always observe professional boundaries in our personal relationships with students, including students enrolled in private or public school. Our district prohibits employees from having inappropriate social relationships with students. So there's no confusion or misunderstanding about the district standards on this issue. The following interactions or communication with students will generally be considered inappropriate social relationship. If the communication with the student, whether by phone or email or instant message, Twitter, text, or any electronic or digital communication at any time, unless the communication is directly assigned to duties and responsibilities. For example, talking about homework, absences, sports, or a school-sponsored event. Engaging in personal conversation with students about their students' own personal relationships or problems with a spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, or significant other. Taking a student away from school during school day without the parent's permission or the principal. Visiting students at their home when a parent is not present, or inviting a student to your home without prior or express permission of the student's parent. Giving gifts, for example, clothing, perfume, cologne, jewelry, to students at school at any time without the parents' knowledge and permission. And all of this is on our RGCCISD handbook that you can download from the district website. Playing favorites, allowing students to get away with conduct that is not permitted for other students. Okay, if you do get reported, resignations and terminations of certified educators, including educational aides, will be reported to the superintendent within 7 business days to the State Board of Education. If there's evidence that the employer engaged in certain misconduct, any form of sexual or physical abuse of a minor, or any other unlawful conduct with a student or minor, unless the superintendent has completed an investigation into the misconduct and determined that the educator did not engage in the misconduct. Soliciting or engaging in sexual contact or romantic relationship with a student or minor, unless the superintendent has completed an investigation into the misconduct and determined that the educator did not engage in the misconduct. Possession, transfer, sale, or distribution of a controlled substance, illegal transfer, appropriation, or expenditure of district or school property of funds. The funds have to be used for what they were meant for. An attempt by fraudulent or unauthorized means to obtain or alter any certificate or permit for the purpose of promotion or additional compensation. For example, we can't lie about our certification. Committing a criminal offense or any part of criminal offense on district property or at school-sponsored event. In addition, the superintendent is required to notify SPEC within 7 business days when a certified employee or an applicant for certification has reported criminal history. Reported criminal history means any formal criminal justice system charges and dispositions, including arrests, detentions, indictments, criminal information, convictions, deferred adjudications, and probations in any state or federal jurisdiction that is obtained by means other than Fact, the finger-based application, Clearinghouse of Texas. A principal must notify the superintendent within 7 business days of an educator's termination or resignation following an alleged incident of the misconduct listed above, or the principal's becoming aware of an educator's criminal record that was not obtained. Fact. If you do break any of those laws, you can lose employment, certification, and be brought up on criminal charges. Any questions? Any questions?
No.
Okay, thank you. Let me stop recording. I want to thank you guys for sitting through that.